Good morning, 400 level students of PAE. I want to welcome you to a very short lecture for PAE 474 Pest Management. Pest Management. My name is Obinwa IC, and I just have a little topic to share with us, which is the physical measures of insect management. The physical measures of insect management. There are lots of methods in managing insect pests, and there are cultural methods, there are biological methods, there are chemical methods, but this topic is focused on the physical methods or the physical measures of insect management. So how we do this is by involving physical methods. That is what we do mechanically. Physical methods in order to either destroy pests or scare them away or prevent them from getting entrance into maybe our crops or our stored grains or our homes, depending on where you are controlling the pests, because pests can attack different maybe stored grains, or maybe the cultivated crops in the fields or wherever. Even the rodents, they can invade our homes and cause one or two problems. So they are around a lot of human endeavors, so we can physically deal with them or prevent them from coming into our homes or into our cultivated farmlands with the following methods. One of them is what we call exclusion and barrier, and then the second one is traps, by the use of traps. The third is the use of physical disturbance, and then the fourth is sound. The fifth is lethal temperature. The sixth is controlled atmosphere. The seventh is dust and particulates. And then the last but not the least is irradiation. So these are the different physical methods or approaches we can use to deal with insect pests. They are the methods we can use to manage insect pests so that they don't cause as much harm as they intended. So I want to go on to the first one immediately, which is exclusion and barriers. From the name exclusion and barrier, it means trying to prevent something from getting entrance. You're trying to exclude it, or you're trying to put up a barrier so that a certain organism will not be able to gain entrance maybe into a particular hood, or you're trying to prevent it from your home. You're trying to set something that will prevent it from gaining entrance. So pest exclusion is a preventive tactic that includes sealing up areas of your home where pests are likely to enter. You seal up some surfaces, some cracks, some holes where pests are likely to enter or are likely to gain entrance into your homes or your apartments. So when we use what we call pest exclusion, it means the different materials or equipment we can put up in order to prevent pests from getting entrance to our apartments. So pest exclusion is essentially denying pests access to our house. Denying them access to our house. That is, you've caused a barrier or you have caused an exclusion. You excluded it. Okay, you've caused an exclusion. That means you can't get entrance into your apartment. So there are different strategies that can be used to help keep pests out of our homes. So some of them, as regards exclusion, is seal up cracks and holes. When you have cracks, any corner of your home, be it in the wall or be it on the wall, you have hole, maybe close to the wall or anywhere, please seal it up. seal it up, because rodents can gain entrance into your homes from those areas. Okay, so seal every crack and hole that can let organisms like cockroaches and rats squeeze through into your homes. It could be under the doors. Sometimes you have a big space between the door and the floor. Now rats, some rodents, cockroaches, they can squeeze through and then get entrance into your rooms or your apartments, as the case may be. Then another way we can achieve exclusion is by creating obstacles. We can create obstacles. Sometimes in our pipes and vents, okay, those outlets, maybe from industries and all that, where they exit waste, okay, those pipes and vents, we can create obstacles. Sometimes some people use mesh, or some people use like wire gauze, some people use like screens in their doors, their windows and all that. You can create obstacles so that when those organisms come, they have an obstacle preventing them from gaining entrance. Okay, so they cannot gain entrance, they can't even come inside. Alright, no matter how hard they try, unless there's a crack or there's a hole or there's something that is not right somewhere. So when we create obstacles, when they come, it serves as a barrier, so they can't break through, so they can't destroy those obstacles, so they will be denied entrance or access into your homes or wherever you want to prevent them from gaining entrance into. The number 3 is that we can putting up nets. Okay, using nets keeps organisms like mosquitoes away. That is the long-lasting, for those of us that use the long-lasting insecticidal treated nets. We use them when we hang them over our beds. We use them to keep organisms like mosquitoes away. Okay, they can come, but when they come, they can't pass through the net. They cannot pass through the mesh of the net because of their size. It is constructed in such a way that the size of the openings on the net will be smaller than the size of the organisms you want to prevent from getting entrance. So when they come, it serves as a barrier and they cannot pass through. So it protects you from those pests. Okay, then remove access. Sometimes in our homes there are maybe a lot of things around our homes, maybe the compound, that can attract some of those pests. Like when we have a tree that the branches are spread all over, sometimes a branch could be resting on the rooftop. Okay, that branch that is resting on the rooftop could serve as maybe a link for an organism from the tree to the building. Okay, so when you cut off such branches that tend to rest on the rooftops, you've cut off an access. So even if those organisms get entrance, even if those organisms find themselves on the trees, they will not be able to get into the house because that access where they can climb has been taken away. Okay, so they will not be able to climb onto the rooftops of the building. That is for some kind of pests that climb the trees and the buildings and all of that. Then when we talk about barriers, we mean, like in the case of plants, barriers in plants are grasses, we can call them life barriers because they are living life barriers. They are grasses that can be planted at the borders of the main crops. For instance, if I have a garden that I planted some vegetables or maybe pepper or some cash crops, some little cash crops, like I have cucumber and all that, and I want to prevent some pests like squirrels that can be able to come into the field and then destroy the crops. What will I do if I consider having life barriers? What I'm going to do is I will have some grasses or plants that will be taller than my cash crops, okay, taller, possibly bigger, I will have it, or I will have them around my field. So it's a kind of a guide or a protective guide or shield around the main crops that I don't want pests to come close to. So when those insect pests come around, or any kind of pest, what they do is that they will now concentrate on those my barriers, those my life barriers, those my plants that I use to guard the main plants. Maybe I have pepper. Maybe I have like vegetables like pumpkin leaf and all of that, like bitter leaf and all of that. So maybe I don't want pests on those crops. I can plant some kind of, sometimes you can even plant weeds. We use weeds to guide them so that when those pests come around, they will now focus on the leaves of those weeds. And so when they feed on them, they will not be able to maybe reach onto those my crops that are beneficial to me. They will now concentrate on the weeds, and after infesting on them and doing all sorts of funny things that they know how to do best, they will now leave, and I'll have my crops to myself, the cultivated crops to myself. So we can have grass barriers planted on the borders of a crop in order to protect or isolate it from nearby plants or crops that may share virus and other pests and diseases. So usually these barriers have to be taller and thick enough to prevent vectors from passing through the crop. Barriers also include use of window screens. Like some people say, like some people put mosquito nets on their windows. Some of them we use almaco frame to put. So these are screens that we put on the windows to prevent some kind of organisms from getting entrance. So that when you want to open your windows, maybe you need fresh air, you need ventilation, you can open your windows, and then the net will be closed so that some organisms will not get entrance. Sometimes in some buildings or in some places or in some neighborhoods, you see that people don't usually open their windows often because of maybe there's a bush behind, there's an unkept garden behind, that some rodents or sometimes fear of snake can even make us to be can even make us to shut the windows. Can make us to shut the windows. But shutting the windows will not enable cross ventilation in the house. So hence, if we allow these windows to get open, we must have screens to prevent some kind of organisms from getting entrance into the building or into the room or into the house, as the case may be. So barriers also include the use of window screens for keeping health and nuisance pests out of buildings and plant pests out of greenhouses, for plants that are grown in greenhouses where we have a shield, where we have a shield and we use gases to grow plants in greenhouses. So that shield, of course, is a barrier already for any kind of pests coming for those plants. All right. So other barriers can include fence or fences. Other barriers can include nets. We talked about nets, and then mulch. Sometimes in the farmland, you see the farmer they will mold up dry leaves. Maybe after cultivation, they will mold up dry leaves and then keep it on the newly cultivated ridges in their farmlands. So while they're doing that, they're trying to prevent pests, like in this case now, like hen or cock, from reaching onto the cultivated ridge to hunt for the cultivated seed. All right, so it's a kind of barrier. We're using this as a barrier, maybe to maybe not to allow them to see or to take off their minds from it. They will think it's just an old stuff and all that, so they will walk away. So it's a form of barrier. And some school of thought refer to this exclusion and barrier as a kind of pest proofing. That is, you have a proof against pests, right? So over here I have a diagram of what seems to be like a long-lasting ancestral treated net. Okay, using it over the bed, it helps to shield the occupants of the bed from some kind of pest, right? My next slide shows a stainless steel mesh barrier. They are getting favor for protecting structures from termites due to their permanence and low toxicity. So it has no hazard, it has nothing to fear, it has no ecological, it has no negative impact in the ecosystem. It's just to prevent entrance of some organisms into our important areas. Okay, then the next is the traps. Of course, we are familiar with traps in our homes. Sometimes we use traps to get animals in the bushes, in the homes, to set trap, to catch one organism or the other. So we also use that to get hold of our pests. Now, a trap is a device used in which animals can be caught and penned. It is usually used in spaces that are unseen or inaccessible. In those dark corners that you feel rats run around all the time in the night, they don't let you sleep and all that. When you wake up in the night, you see their poo all over. So you can put it at those dark corners where they usually stay or move around. Then we have different types of traps based on their setup. Number one is sticky trap. A sticky trap is one that usually has an adhesive or glue. Okay, that whenever a pest come across it, it sticks. Okay, the pest itself sticks. Sometimes it has glue, very thick glue, and adhesive, gum, and the rest of them. So some insects are attracted to bright yellow or blue or other colors. So they can be cut on colored sheets. So you cannot use, depending on the kind of insect you are aiming at. So you can use a paper that has the color that particular insect that you want to target or that you are targeting is attracted to. Okay, you can use that color to do the base of your trap, so that when they see that color, they will rush towards that object. No one knowing is a trap. So once they come close, they get stuck on it. Sticky traps are commonly used as a monitoring tool in greenhouses and orchards. By regularly checking the sticky traps, the initial presence of a potentially damaging insect population can be detected. You can know the frequency of organisms, how often they appear on your traps. You can know by that you can make an estimation of their abundance in that place or locality. So the second one is bright blue traps. Each of them has the organism that they attract. Then we have the pheromone traps. Pheromone traps are traps that attract organisms based on chemical aura. Chemical aura, it could be the odor, because there are different organisms have their different odor. Okay, sometimes there is this ant that when you kill it, it has this kind of scent. Okay, that comes out of it. So every organism has its own. All right, so we can use some of these odor to invite some insects. For instance, there are some insects that are attracted to maybe the opposite sex based on this odor we are talking about, or the pheromones. Okay, so when you use maybe such scent or such odor, you replicate it and then have it around your trap. Okay, and the odor is just everywhere. You can attract the same organism that odor is meant to attract, and when it comes, you catch it maybe with some other setup that is able to take hold of the insect and then pin it. You do that with pheromone traps. So these are traps that that make use of chemical substances, because those odor, they are all chemical substances. Let me in quote. Alright, and number 4 is pitfall trap. Pitfall trap, they are plastic pitfall traps. They are used for crawling in pests in the field as well as in strong grain beans. So the species and number of insects found in the trap should be recorded and charts constructed so that changes in population size can be noticed. Alright, so this pitfall trap is a kind of a trap we put down the earth, and the tip of the container or the tin will be on the same level ground with the floor. Alright, so you put that's what we call it pitfall. So you put it inside a pit depending on the size of the container. So if any insect or if any pest, okay, comes across that tin that you buried on the ground, okay, it will maybe jump inside or it will fall inside. And sometimes in the body of the container or the pitfall trap, you rub some grease or oil substance on it so that when those pests or those insects enter inside, they will not be able to come out, no matter how hard they try. So it's one of the cheapest method we can achieve this physical method of pest management, right? Then we have the light traps. These ones make use of light. Some organisms are attracted to white light, some red light, some blue light, as the case may be. So if you are targeting one of such organisms, you must be able to look for, as in the case of light trap, you must be able to look for the color that they attract, or the color that attracts them, so that once you set your trap, they see those colors, they will start coming. Okay. The number 5 is light traps. Light traps, of course, from the name, they are traps that we use light to attract the pest. Okay, they are traps you use light to attract the pest. Some of them are attracted to different kinds of light. So depends on the pest you want to control at the moment. Then we have number 3 of those methods as physical disturbance. So physical disturbance. Physical disturbance involves series of acts where we physically disturb maybe a kind of maybe we have a tin of stored grains. You disturb them, you shake them, they fall against each other. That's a physical disturbance. You disturb the piece of those grains or those stored grains, and by falling on themselves, by that disturbance, it causes a lot of stress on the pests, and subsequently it leads to their destruction. Okay, so most forms of physical disturbance or destruction are tied to some other techniques or agricultural methods of trapping, and then perhaps it leads to pest control. Examples include tillage, flaming, and crop residue destruction, physical capture with traps, modification of temperature or humidity. Other approaches could include vacuuming, hand picking, crushing, swatting. Okay, so this physical disturbance method, like in the case of tillage, you till the soil. Okay, there are pests living underneath the soil. So when you turn them over and over again, you destroy their habitat and all that, they could while away and meet their death, as the case may be. Then crop residue, some of those ones that have been destroyed already by pests, when you involve physical disturbance, okay, you can shake off the pest and then subsequently destroy them. That's the case, maybe. Then we have sound. Sound is another strategy in physical control of pests. In physical control of pests. So we have it that uh, sound is rarely used in pest or insect management. Okay, but this sound is um, commonly seen as sound-based repellers. They are what we call sound-based repellers. They repel the organisms like mosquito in our homes. They scare away. There are some sounds that scares away. There are some sounds that scare away some organisms. As human beings, there are some sounds that might be too much for us. So as those little organisms are as pests, there are sounds that will be much on them. It can cause stress on them and can subsequently lead to death. Ultrasonic pests repellers are devices that use electricity and light. So these repellers, they use electricity that release high frequency sounds to get rid of and eliminate pests. So that sound, like, it affects their balance and it can lead to their death and elimination. So there's a study that was carried out. That study involved Aedes albopictus. Okay, so the population were known to reduce by 76% just by attraction to loudspeakers. So the loudspeaker was producing a sound of 400 Hz. You can imagine that. So at that tone, when the Aedes albopictus were attracted by such sound from the loudspeakers, then so at the center of the sound, where the sound was emanating from, was an insecticide treated black polyethylene sheet. Okay, so what happened was, as those Aedes organisms were coming close to where the sound was coming out from, so they met their death. Okay, because there was an insecticide treated black polyethylene sheet there. So as they landed on it, they couldn't survive it. So this method of using sound, though it is rarely used, it's not common and it's not widely used because I think is not cost effective. It's not cost effective. You spend a lot of money. It involves a lot of electronic gadgets to get it done, so it's not cost effective. But the good thing is that it is environmental friendly, and then it has no health risk. It has no negative impact in the ecosystem and all that. So that is it. It has no negative impact. So, but it's not cost effective. It's quite costly. So number 5 is let out temperature. Let out temperature. When we talk of let out temperature, we mean extreme temperatures, very hazardous temperatures to the organisms that are targeted. So this is a form of temperature control, use of temperature to control pests. Because extremes of temperature, that is both hot and cold, can actually deal with pests. You can deal with insects. So when the temperature is too hot, it's not favorable. When it is too cold, it is not also favorable. Alright, so it can be used to control pests. So placing produce inside cold storage containers, it lengthens how long the produce lasts. That is the shelf life. Now we're talking of storage. When we place produce inside cold storage containers, okay, like we have in our cold rooms. You kill let me say a cow or a goat, you dismember the parts, and then you store them inside your freezer or a cold room. It has a very cold and extreme temperature. So what happens? It's going to preserve it. So preserving it, no matter the organism that entered into that cold room with the meat, those organisms will not be able to survive it. So we also use the extreme temperatures to control pests. Okay. So as these produce are put in cold storage, another thing they do is that aside learning how long the produce will last, another thing is they do that they inhibit or they hinder the growth of insects inside of them. So another method we can use is to use heat, that is extreme heat, as it will kill the insect larvae in certain types of produce. Extreme heat. So an example is it has been done with mangoes. So where they were placed into a hot water bath in order to kill any eggs or larvae inside of them or on their outside. Okay, so any organism that is not wanted can be destroyed with the two extreme temperatures, be it extremely hot or extremely cold. So the sixth one is controlled atmosphere. Controlled atmosphere. You know, in the atmosphere we have air, and this air has a standard composition of gases. Okay, like the oxygen is supposed to be about 21% of air. Nitrogen is supposed to be about 78% of air. So if all those gases in the air can be controlled, we can manipulate them to prevent or to inhibit the growth of some organisms. So because we need oxygen to survive, when we reduce the amount of oxygen that an organism can be exposed to, when we reduce the amount of oxygen that an organism should be exposed to, what will happen to that is that organism will die a gradual death. Okay, so with the principle of without oxygen nothing can survive, controlled atmosphere is the use of controlled atmosphere chambers to lower oxygen to below 0.5% or sometimes 1 to 5% through the flushing of nitrogen to kill insects at all life stages, including their eggs, the larva, the pupa, and the adults. So aside from using nitrogen, we can use carbon dioxide. When we increase the rate of carbon dioxide surrounding an organism, what it will do is that it will stress the organism's metabolic system, okay, and it will destroy it, and then it can lead to suffocation and death. All right. So controlled atmosphere is applied to control pests in dry commodities and food supplies, and is extremely suitable for both preventive and curative treatments. The technique is based on the creation of a low oxygen content in a specially constructed gas-tight treatment chamber or container, like the silo, or as we have in a bulk cargo, like you see some people they say they want to do way bill. Sometimes they get their material, they wrap it so well with tapes and all that, no air. It will keep whatever thing inside intact. And I bet you if there's any organism that initially existed there, that organism will not be alive when that package will be unwrapped. Okay, because it has experienced a very low oxygen that will lead to its destruction. So example of such treatment is bulk and tent treatment, chamber and container treatment. Like container, once it has a seal, all right, and silo treatment. Silo we use to store our grains and all of that. So when we put them in such chambers or containers or whatever, there is little or no oxygen. So whatever insect, in fact, no insect, no pest can survive in such an environment. So it will lead to their destruction, and the grains will be saved. Okay, so this technique is also environmentally friendly. It goes without the use of toxic gases, and it does not leave any residue on the product or produce. and no resistance can occur at all because you're not dealing with chemicals, right? So controlled atmosphere treatments can be applied to our warehouses, our cold rooms, our chambers, our shipping containers, in transit, individual boxes, and wrapped items. So anything we're able to put together, give it an enclosure, it will exist without oxygen. Okay, remember I said we can use nitrogen gas or CO2 gas, that is on deliberate terms, in order to destroy those living organisms that may be present or may not be present. Alright, the next one is dust and particulates. Dust and particulates. So these dust and particulates are usually in powder form. So they are known to desiccate arthropods and are used directly on pests. Okay, it is usually done using kaolin. Kaolin contains aluminium silicate hydroxide in a particle film technique. So with this technique, plant surfaces are coated with a fine layer of kaolin particles which disrupt arthropod recognition of plant surfaces, resulting in the reduced oviposition and feeding. So in addition to the disruption of arthropod pests, some fungal pathogens are also killed and heat stress is reduced in trees. So what all this is trying to say that this dust and particulates can be used to control pests. Sometimes we use sand. In those days, we can use sand. So when we pour them on these crops, especially, it will be difficult for the pests to identify them. So when they come around, they pass them by, and without feeding, many of them will not be able to, get up to their reproductive stages, not to talk of reproducing. So we have other dust-like products that we can use for this means. We have common salt, we have sand, we have wood ash, we have clays. That is that ash we gather at the end of our cooking with firewood and all that. Sometimes we use it to grow plants. Okay, that is when you pour it at the roots, at the base of the plant, right? But when you pour it on the leaves of the plant, it serves a different purpose, especially when you have much pest infestation. So we have clays, we have synthetic and precipitated silicates, and we have silica aerogels. Okay, so these products act by disrupting the cortical lipids, the absorption and abrasion, leading to desiccation, dryness, and it will lead to death of organisms. Okay, so note that these dust and particulates, could also involve chemicals. They could also involve chemicals, and those chemicals have the ability to destroy some beneficial organisms around the plants. Okay, so the next one is irradiation, and it is the last. Irradiation. Irradiation simply is a process by which an object is exposed to radiation. So radiation is anything that emits radiative element. Is any radiative element that emits radiative waves, okay, radiative rays and all that. So an irradiator is a device that is used to expose an object to radiation. And in this case of irradiation, we majorly use gamma radiation that produces some gamma rays that are able to destroy the cells of these organisms without destroying the produce or the stored grains, as the case may be. So when we expose our commodities, like for instance we have stored grain, when we expose it to ionizing radiation, what it does is that it breaks the molecules of the living organisms, that is the pest, especially the larger molecules like the DNA. Okay, the DNA now results in their inability to function correctly, and it will prevent continued development, and it will cause them inability to reproduce. It will destroy their ability to reproduce. That is, it will affect their fertility, thereby causing them to be sterile. So irradiation is also used for sterilizing insects, used in sterile insect area-wide programs. There are sometimes when we want to do maybe community-wide community-wide intervention for pests or for vectors of diseases. What we do is when we can get a species of that vector. Let me say the males. You get the males, or if you're able to somehow, even if you grow them in a laboratory or whatever, you get some males, you make them sterile, and then you push them into the field or into the habitat, so that even no matter how they try to reproduce with the other fertile females out there, they will not be able to do that because they are already sterile. The males are already sterile. So it can be used in area-wide programs or interventions to control vectors of diseases, or to even control the insect pests of maybe crops or stored grains, as the case may be. Then also is also used in suppressing pest populations in stored products. So sometimes our stored grains can go through ionizing radiation, and it will not affect the stored grains, rather it will destroy whatever living organism that is existing with those stored grains, the pest. It will destroy them, to destroy their DNA, to cause them inability to reproduce, and subsequently it can lead to their death. So that is that for the physical methods of controlling insect pests or controlling insects, as you want to put it. But I would like us to look at the advantages and the disadvantages of these physical control measures. Number one on the advantages is that the biggest advantage of this kind of pest control method is that it doesn't involve any kind of dangerous chemicals. So use of chemicals are completely ruled out. We say that chemicals are potential poisons. They are poison. So a chemical, one of the disadvantages of using a chemical in control of pests is that when you use chemicals to control a certain kind of pest, be it on a farmland or stored grain or whatever, that chemical has the ability to destroy other good things around. Okay? If you're using it in stored grains, it can form a residue. It can have some particles of it retaining in the, like for example, if we have let me say I want to store some metric tons of beans grain. Then I store them in a container, then I put one chemical, be it a powder form or whatever. As that chemical is able to kill some insect pests, it is forming residue. And that's some people will tell you, parboil your beans before you now cook. You throw away the first water because of some chemical residue that might have been deposited on them as a result of the chemicals used in preserving them, or the chemicals used in trying to destroy some pests that has attacked them before. Okay, so but in physical control measures, no chemicals, you don't even have any fear. Whatever residue, it has no negative impact on the environment, nothing of it, just something you do mechanically. All right. Number two is that physical control methods are usually environmentally friendly. They are environmentally friendly. Whatever you do, it doesn't harm your environment. You don't have any risk of, it's going to destroy my crop, it's going to destroy my soil, no. There's no such thing. So the third advantage is that this physical pest management is also a method that pests cannot develop any kind of resistance to. There's no time you say, these pests have grown to be resistant to traps or resistant to physical disturbance, as the case may be. No, there is no form of resistance. Okay, so which means the approach is always effective and good. Now the disadvantages, I'll mention some of them. Number one is that most times it involves trapping the pests, trapping the rodents, trapping the bird, and all that. And some people believe that it is inhuman to trap animals. It's inhuman to also remove them from their natural habitat. It's inhuman to kill animals. So, however we do it, even if we are doing it to safeguard our crops, some people have it as a school of thought that trapping animals, subjecting them to harsh conditions is not good and acceptable. Okay, another disadvantage is that it involves killing pests, and killing of pests is also considered inhuman, particularly the rodents, the rats, and the larger ones. Okay. Number three is that when there is high infestation, physically removing all the pests will be very tricky and time consuming. It's always a hectic task. Okay, it's time consuming. Imagine if you are to set traps. How many traps are you going to set? And when are you going to go through all your traps to check the pests? Okay, so it's time consuming, and the effectiveness is not as high as expected. Okay, another point is that it is not a very reliable approach. Okay, it's not a very reliable approach because you can deal with a group of pests now, and when you are gone, another generation will come along. Okay, so it's not a reliable approach that once it's done now, you are okay forever. You keep doing it. You keep doing it and doing it and doing it. Okay, so it's not a very reliable approach to stopping pests from returning to their original infestation site. Okay, then lastly, the reason physical pest control is still preferable to chemical control is because chemical pest controls and poisons, we call it poisons, may be an effective method. They can be an effective method, but they are the worst. Okay, they are the worst method because when it comes to environmental impact, they create a very huge negative environmental impact. They leave behind a very huge negative environmental impact because use of chemicals can cause resistance to those pests, and they can leave residue on our leaves, on our crops, on our grains, and all of that. So it has a huge environmental impact. So while physical pest control can take longer to effectively complete, it can take a very long time to effectively complete, it doesn't have a lasting impact on the environment where it takes place because you keep putting up your physical measures, you keep doing them repeatedly. So it doesn't even pose a threat. Physical method does not pose any threat to any kind of living creature. No. But chemical pest control methods can pose threats to different living creatures around them. Imagine using an insecticide to kill maybe a particular insect in your farmland. What about other innocent insects? They could also be affected. If those insecticides are harsh enough to kill one insect, it can kill other kinds of insects. So they pose a threat to other living creatures. And with this, I want to wrap up the lecture, and I want to go back and refresh your memory on the different types of this physical control method. First we talked about exclusion and barrier, and then Second, we talked about traps. And third, we talked about physical disturbance, and then we talked about use of sound, and then we talked about lateral temperature, that is using extreme dangerous temperatures to control pests. And then we talked about controlled atmosphere, how we control the level of oxygen. We can have more CO2 than we have oxygen. It can destroy the insect pests. Okay, and then we have dust and particulates that we can throw on farmlands and all that, and they can be able to help prevent the growth of this pest. Then we have irradiation, use of exposing our maybe produce or stored grains to ionizing radiation, to radioactive rays, dangerous radioactive rays. So those rays can deal with the living organisms, but they can't deal with maybe the stored grains and the rest of them. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. I wish you all the best in your coming exams. Please do well to read or focus more on you should be able to tell us the reason physical control method is better than some other methods. Okay, you should also be able to tell us between insecticide and dust and particulates, which is better. Okay, you should be able to tell us the difference, and then you should be able to tell us what controlled atmosphere is. You should also be able to tell us what traps are. You should also be able to tell us what lateral temperature means, and what physical disturbance means also. And you should also be able to tell us, in fact, what physical method of controlling pests mean also. Okay, so the physical methods of controlling pests, they are simply the physical methods that we adopt or that we use to modify the physical environment of the pest. So whatever we use to change or modify the physical environment of the pest, maybe in order to catch it, or in order to scare it away, or in order to control it, in order to make it sterile, whatever we do physically or mechanically, that is under physical control method. I wish you the best once again, and hope to see you soon. Thank you so much. Good luck on your exams. Stay safe.